All right, I think we're going to jump right in and just get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to this international education series. We've been focusing on countries all over the globe, and today's series is focusing specifically on India. This event is being hosted by the Equity and Inclusion Fellows at the Harvard Graduate School of Education in collaboration with the International Education Policy Program, which we were all well, I'm still technically a student, you guys are an alum of, and also with Harvard Common Spaces. And if you'd like to know more about the events happening through Harvard Common Spaces, check out commonspaces.harvard.edu. My name is Maryam Farooq, and I'll be moderating the panel discussion today. I'm currently an IP student, and I'm very excited to learn more about the experiences of fellow IPers in India. So before I start asking some questions, I have a brief bio that I'd like to share about each of our panelists here today. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome you from the Harvard community and for making the time to be with us here today. Our first panelist is Ethan Van Drunen. Ethan has worked in international and residential education for over 17 years and is a vice principal of Woodstock School in Uttarakhand. Prior to his return to Woodstock in 2016, Ethan served as a teacher, policy consultant, and school leader in India, Myanmar, Serbia, and the USA. He has an EDM in International Education Policy from the Harvard Graduate School of Education in 2010, a bachelor's in Social Studies Education from Taylor University, and principal certification through the University of San Francisco and Washington State University. Ethan is a proponent of giving students the opportunity to have voice, choice, and opportunity to develop mastery and creativity in their learning. Woodstock has recently launched the Center for Imagination as a place which incubates students' ideas and hosts visiting experts who are focused on making our world a more just and interesting place. If students are given voice and choice into how and what they learn, then they're more likely to be resilient and to live with a sense of purpose and vocation. Ethan is married to Jamie Vincent, also an IEP alum from 2010, an education specialist who works with multilateral organizations, international NGOs and consulting firms. Ethan and Jamie have 3 children and are busy trying to figure out how to balance the competing demands of parenting, homeschooling, and continue to do work in this difficult time. Our second panelist is Suman Barua. Suman is a director of education at Reality Gifts, a community-based education nonprofit in Mumbai and Delhi. He started his career as a software engineer before realizing his calling to be in education. As a Teach for India fellow, Suman taught for 2 years in a low-income school in Mumbai. He has worked as a teacher trainer, done projects with EDU, COA Ghana, UNICEF India, and the Swedish government. He also has an EDM in International Education Policy in 2016 and dreams of achieving education equity for all. At a personal level, Suman is a fitness enthusiast, loves to run marathon and experience music and travel. So once again, thank you for being here. And we're definitely going to learn more about the work that you're doing throughout the course of the discussion. What's going to happen is first, we're just going to have a conversation amongst ourselves. But at the same time, we're going to have the Q&A box open so our panelists can submit questions there. And I'll do my best to incorporate those questions throughout the course of our conversation. So the very first thing I'd like to get into is firstly, how are you doing? Where are you joining us from in the world? And after that, just set the stage for us about, how has COVID been affecting the work that you guys do in India? How's it been affecting your teachers, students, the program in general? Just set the stage for us and let us know how everything is, which is a big question, but wherever you'd like to start.
That's great.
Ethan,
would you like me to go first, or Suman?
Ethan, you can go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Maryam, for hosting us and for kind of setting the stage as far as where I'm coming from, which is an employee of Woodstock School, but I'm coming to you right now from my home state of Michigan, because since the lockdown occurred and since we decided to close the school campus in the second week of March, we've sort of scattered, the students and staff of Woodstock have scattered across 15 different time zones. And so that's really forced us to limit the amount of synchronous learning we've been able to do, and we've relied upon asynchronous learning with some check-ins along the way for the remainder of this semester. So yeah, Woodstock's the school of like 500 students. And they come from every state in India and around 30 countries around the world. But I've been there for 8 years, and it's although it's an expensive school, the students are not only from that demographic. We're a nonprofit, and our mission makes sure that students come from a wide array of economic backgrounds and also a wide array of internet access. And so these are some of the challenges that we have faced in this shift to distance learning. Yeah.
Thank you, Ethan. Suman?
Again, thank you, Maryam, for having us. Really looking forward to discussing education in India today. So I wanted to start a little bit with the background of what Reality Gives does as an organization. So as an organization, we run 3 institutes, one elementary school in a slum called Dharavi in Mumbai, and 2 youth institutes, one in Mumbai and one in Delhi, again situated in similar slums. We have around 34 teachers between these 3 institutes, and annually we serve around 1,000 students. Currently, I am in Mumbai, our headquarters, at home, safe, and the organization is also doing all right. So I think your question was, how has this affected us initially? So I just want to start with like, our school and youth institute had to be closed on 16th of March, which is kind of the day the government decided to close education institutions. And obviously we had to do that because our immediate response was to ensure safety and security of all our staff and students. And then as we progressed, as the weeks progressed, we kind of had to take decisions on how we proceed with the programs and such. But initially we had to close them down and then think about like, what do we do next?
All right, thank you for setting the stage for us. So it's definitely influenced the work that you're doing. And I just want to get into the specifics of that to better understand. So for example, Ethan, with your work, you have students in multiple time zones with a diverse background and different access to internet connectivity. So for yourself, how are you navigating continuing to do your work? Like, are you continuing to do it? And if so, how have you adapted your methods so that you can make it happen for all your students as best as you can?
Yeah, Maryam, thanks. I think that all schools have really looked to one another in a spirit of collaboration during this time. And so we've taken a lot of our strategies from kind of our peer schools and shared a lot of ideas back and forth. And one thing that we've come to realize and understand is that relationships remain key, even in a distance context, in relation context, that it requires a large level of empathy, a high level of empathy, to take on the student's perspective, to understand exactly what the student is experiencing. And they are experiencing a feeling of grief, of kind of shock that this has happened to them, and of a need for stability, and also a need to personally relate with their teachers and their students. And so the use of Seesaw as a video app that can be shared back and forth, and some other kinds of apps where it's very easy to give to use your phones to give video messages back and forth. That's been useful. We've used Google Classroom as a place where content can be posted and where it's very easy for teachers to give feedback on all of the content. And then because we are an international baccalaureate school, we use ManageBac as the place where students put their summative assessments at the end. So the formative assessment, those are things that kind of go along the way with feedback. And then the summative assessment, we really have limited that, right? So only like 2 different summative assessments since we've since we went to distance learning. Some subjects only 1. And so really prioritizing and understanding how less is more, and to focus on what are the basic essentials that we want our students to leave with. And in designing the assessments that will work in that context, everyone from math to science to English, we have kind of learned that it needs to be authentic types of assessments that are engaging to the student and that can't just be copied from each other. And these are the kind of high-level questions which require critical thinking and for which there is no one right answer for. And so I'm actually kind of excited to see the changes that will be taking place during this time of distance learning, because it's not, it's the power is no longer with the teacher. The power is with the student. As far as, are they going to tune in? Are they going to engage? And then it's up to us to create an environment that, for the student to really thrive in and to apply learning to their actual lives, right? So to create something that then they can send back to us. And so we know that the emergency distance learning that we have engaged in the past will look quite different than the planned approach that we're going to hopefully launch, from the first week of August when we restart school. And that will, I think, have a bit more structure to the day, where we are going to rely slightly more on synchronous lessons. Some of those are simply with check-ins. And they'll also be shorter. We found that 50 minutes is far too long to be engaged in a Zoom call. And so we're limiting those to 25 minutes, spaced 5 minutes apart. And relying on an interesting technique called the Pomodoro technique. The Pomodoro technique is 25 minutes, only focused on one thing, no multiple tabs, just one task, and then 5 minutes off to do whatever else you need to do. And then you come back to another 25-minute session. And we have found that that's really useful. And it's, so I think less teacher-led instruction, more dialogue and feedback, clear weekly plans articulated to students at the start of each week so that they can plan themselves, and the importance of relationships and routine. That's especially what the parents were really calling and crying out for, is, please give my child a sense of routine, which was difficult to make happen at first. But I think that, over time we have been able to establish routine mixed with relationships where we can connect. That routine, I think, is really, really important from a mental health standpoint as well, and not just for students. It's easy for especially teenagers to become nocturnal and to just lose track of time. And that's another reason to set up those routines and those traditions. And that's something that we'll be continuing to work on.
Thank you for that. That was really informative. And it's really interesting to already hear how you guys have been adapting your teaching methods and the way that you're going about things already. And that's just really interesting to hear. But Suman, I also want to get your perspective on this, because I know you said that you had to stop everything March 16th when the orders came in from the government for the shutdown. But I'm just curious to know, since then, have there been any changes? Has anything started up again? And if so, how are you doing it? Because your demographic is also very unique. You're functioning within the slums of Mumbai and Delhi. So I just want to get your perspective on that as well.
Yeah, I was quite intrigued by what Ethan was sharing, because even though we operate in different contexts, there are a lot of similarities that I observe. But I think it's good to start the conversation on who are our beneficiaries or who are our students. Essentially, our students are people who live in the slums, but their parents are daily wage earners or migrants. People, maybe some of the kids are going to school for the first time in their generation. So they face a lot of inequities during this COVID time, right? Most of the parents have lost their jobs and they live in very close spaces. So one thing that we have learned COVID has done really well is really magnify the inequities that exist. It has just thrown open what issues people face. And that is something that was essential for us to be cognizant of while we were thinking of how do we go forward. Like um, how do we keep in mind the background of our students and make sure that our program is still able to serve them. Um, Once we looked beyond the usual challenges they were facing, for example, as Ethan was talking about mental health issues, and they were also facing nutrition issues because a lot of the schools kind of were gateways for providing meals, supporting teachers, and obviously now because of economic issues, they were not going to have that. We decided to focus on continuing the education program because we thought that would give sort of like a gateway to the students and even to the parents of some semblance of normalcy, right? So the first thing we had to do is take a stock of what technology exists. If you had to use digital technologies to deliver our program, what would we have to do? And again, similar to what Ethan was saying, we realized that a synchronous system of Zoom or something that's live is not going to work. Many reasons. A lot of the household, the mobile phone or the technology device lies with the man, not with the woman. So it's not very easy for the child to be able to access, no matter how invested the parent is. So we had to figure a way for it to be asynchronous. The more we studied, we realized that WhatsApp is something that was very easily available for everybody. And we kind of designed all our stuff, all our enrichment activities around WhatsApp. So for this, I'll just break it down into the programs. For our school program, it required us to send videos or worksheets focused on what the students had learned in the previous grade. So to avoid learning loss, say for example. For the youth program, and for the youth program, for example, we created this structure where we would send a video, then we would send a worksheet, and students were able to do the worksheet and send it back, and then teachers would use a markup feature on WhatsApp or audio notes to kind of give feedback. So kind of the interesting two benefits that we saw coming out of this kind of situation is that teachers were able to give more individual feedback because that has now become the norm because everybody is sending the worksheets to them individually. Also, as teachers are planning, what do I send students to do today? They're thinking more about competencies and not about what textbook chapter I need to complete. Because they're like, oh, okay, my students are going to come back next year. They're going to be in 4th grade. What do I need them to know? What do I need them to practice? Is it some writing skill? Is it being able to add to numbers? And these two were kind of a silver lining on the shifts we made. So yeah.
Thank you for that. I think it was really interesting for you to highlight that although there are differences, there are also many similarities. And it was interesting to see how you guys are utilizing technology in somewhat similar ways. You also touched upon something that I think it's really important to talk about, and that's the inequity. Like you said, a lot of what's going on right now is highlighting the inequities in education and healthcare and so many parts of our society. And I'm just curious to know what that conversation is like in India or even amongst yourselves, where the demographics you guys are serving are quite different, the regions are different. What are your thoughts on the inequity issue, and what suggestions might you have relating to what it is that you're seeing? Ethan, we can start with you.
Yeah, I think that it is true that this time is increasing the inequity that the digital divide, and also the divide between urban and rural areas, and also some of our students who are from locations where the internet is sometimes blocked, like Kashmir, so the inequalities that happen regionally between cities and rural areas, and across class divides as well. And so that's something that we are talking about as a school, and it's something that the students are certainly aware of and are also speaking out to. And there's a sense of frustration at not being able to do very much about it, being cooped up in your apartment. And so some students have done some awareness campaigns, and have done some fundraising, as well as volunteering for food distribution, things of that sort. And even at Woodstock, what we have done is put our 3D printer and laser cutters to good use, making protective gear for the local hospital. So kind of our STEM teachers are hard at work using those machines to the fullest in designing kind of some plans for that's based off of requests from the hospital. Saying, could you please make us some of these? And so that's one thing that we're able to do as a community. And I think that more needs to be done. I think that we have to share curriculum among teachers. We need to network. We need to sift through the noise and cut down to what will be the things that are most impactful for students, and whether that's through some high quality programming that's available across across mediums, whether it's television or radio. These are some ideas that our students are coming up with, and they're actually creating podcasts and things like that. But it is different efforts toward reducing inequality, but I think it does require a concerted effort by larger institutions than our own. This is something that if we are to reduce inequality, it's going to take real concerted effort by the government. But the government's also been, also having a difficult time putting together a plan, even to have the grade 10 external examinations happen. Because these things are exams that have to occur. It's like a birth certificate for those who aren't familiar with India's context. It's a very important document, the 10th board exams, and so these things have to occur, and how they will occur is an ongoing question as well. That's something that's also important for our students.
Thank you, Ethan.
Yep.
Suman, I'd also love to get your perspective on that similar question about the inequities that exist and your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'll just continue from what Ethan was talking, especially example of the 10th board exam you just spoke about. My belief is our system, especially system of education in India, was never designed to reduce inequity. It was never designed with cognizance of the fact of, say, different learning levels of students, different income levels of students. And this kind of situation that we've been put in has really magnified that, and really been like, hey, okay, somebody can sit at home and do their access their tutors online, access their learning materials online on YouTube, and some kids, say in rural areas who don't have a smartphone, are just not doing anything, right? So, but then they both are expected to give the same exam and when they reach 10th grade, which doesn't make sense, right? Some specific lenses. I want to stay away from highlighting inequities of the slums, because I think that's quite popularized in media, but I'll use the education lens of an organization that works there. So for example, our programs that we switched online now have an engagement rate of around 70 to 80%, which I think is quite high. Having said that, I've been in conversations and conferences where the rural engagement rates on kind of post-COVID programs has been 8 to 10%, which just shows the drastic difference, drastic inequity that exists in India in terms of even access to technology. Second inequity that we have noticed even more now is teacher skills, right? We've always evaluated teachers on the basis of pedagogical skills and approaches in class, but the technology skills is something that we've not looked at that carefully, especially in nonprofits like ours. But now we realize how different teachers are engaging with the medium, with WhatsApp, with technology differently, and how that impacts students. And obviously, it's a function of inequities they face from their childhoods, etc. So again, our teacher training programs were not designed with mind the different access to technology that people have. And the third inequity kind of challenge we're facing is also about how COVID is designing the future of careers and skills. It's not just about technology skills, but it's also about adaptability. It's about how do you deal with fear? How do you deal with uncertain circumstances? And again, unfortunately, the inequity exists in who is able to deliver these skills, right? Um, Unfortunately, these are very high order skills and it requires resources to teach. So these are kind of the various inequities that we are seeing from the education piece. And I think it's right time to question our overall system of how can we be mindful of inequities in everything we do so that every child and every young person is served.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of really good points there. But I think one thing that I just want to explore a little bit more with you both is that I don't want to just generalize your experiences with the whole country. I think it's really important to highlight that there's probably a vast number of experiences occurring in different regions of the country. But I want to focus on what the two of you are doing to highlight with respect to teacher training. How has that been like for you? Because this happened very quickly. I'm sure you probably didn't have as much time as you needed to prepare them on how to use these resources, and you were just adapting to the situation. So starting with Ethan, can you just tell us a little bit about what that process was like and how were you able to support teachers? Was there something you wish that you could have done better, but you weren't able to due to the circumstances?
Yeah, thanks, Maryam. So we made the decision to close the campus, and then a few days after that to end this semester of on-campus learning during our March spring break time. And what happened was that the teachers would return, and then that week, the students had an extended week of vacation, and then the teachers used that extra week to really set up their online platforms for learning and to come up with a new plan for the semester. And so that 1 week, I think, was very well spent, and it helped us get through to the end. And we made a few tweaks along the way. One thing that we found that we weren't expecting was that the same amount of work that we assign when we're in class takes roughly twice as long for a student to complete at home, with all of their distractions, with their other commitments. Maybe they're taking care of their siblings. It just generally, if you think it would take 1 hour in school, it takes 2 hours at home, and so we had to scale back in that way. And so we changed the recommendations to teachers accordingly. Less is more. And then we also found that there were some teachers that really adapted quite quickly to using a blend of video tutorials and messaging back and forth in ways that were more efficient and quick to other teachers that really weren't able to do that. And also the over-reliance of email is just not a solution for teachers. It's not a good platform. So we shifted away from that as well. And then what we did was we joined a consortium. It's a group called the Global Online Academy, or GOA. And the Global Online Academy offers a design boot camp that our teachers are going to be undertaking in the month of June. And that design boot camp will really reframe our classes so that we will be ready to make sure that students have a sense of agency, that they will have good pathways to information and pathways for feedback, and that they will be able to have quality assessments that are fit for purpose given our new context. So to design next year with that in mind, knowing that at any point we may be able to revert back to everybody being back on campus, right? So we've also taken our normal timetable that's 50-minute periods and just squashed it by half for this distance learning time. And we are using the term distance learning because we recognize that the majority of actual learning that's going to be happening will not be while a student is looking at a screen. It will be while they are actually doing the work, while they are trying things out, and then receiving feedback from teachers on that work. So I really think the asynchronous learning is more important than the synchronous learning. And this is something that we've tried to communicate to parents as well, that the parents are wanting routine and asking for therefore maybe 6-7 hours of Zoom classes in a day, which some schools are providing. And we are pushing back against that because the Global Online Academy has been doing this. It was started by Lakeside School, which was Bill Gates' home school. And they have been doing it for many years and really value limiting the reliance on synchronous learning and maximizing the effectiveness of asynchronous learning while keeping the relationships strong along the way and providing regular opportunities for feedback. So that's the training that we're doing. And there are a series of kind of online courses that they're taking through Goa, as well as really fun kind of like Google Classroom groups that have been set up with just the teachers, where everybody's learning how to do video editing and how to put text on top of the screen, so that if you give a little 5-minute blurb about something, you can make it more interesting for the students to watch, right? To make it kind of funny and fun. And so, yeah, these are things that are happening. Institutional partnerships, but most importantly, just to tell teachers, have a go at it. It's not going to be perfect, and everybody knows that in this time, everyone's making mistakes. Everyone is living short of their expectations that they have for themselves, and we just have to value compassion and be okay with that. And so that's kind of what we've been saying and what we've been doing.
Thank you, Ethan. How about Suman? What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, I mean, it's great to know that you guys had some time to kind of prepare for the kind of digital learning. We actually didn't. We literally had this whole plethora of standardized assessments planned from Monday, and Saturday evening or Sunday morning we get the news, and then we have literally thousands of pages of assessments sitting in the school, and then we just had to shut. Monday, we just didn't open on Monday. And then the immediate approach that we kind of discussed and identified. Anyway, we finished the kind of quote-unquote curriculum. So our main focus was to not let the learning slide and not let the learning go away. And so for that, because you were asking about teacher training, the approach we used was little is better than nothing. Really, so less is more, as Ethan was saying. We actually, at the end of every year, once the kids are done with assessments, we do this 1-week-long leadership retreat with our teachers. Just for some context, all our teachers are also from the communities that we serve. So again, we use a long-term sustainable capacity development as a model, which also means that we invest heavily on the training and development. So at the end of every year, we conduct this overall leadership retreat where we talk about global issues, talk about do some projects, have some fun. And I've been doing that for the last 4 years, and this was the first year we found that we had to use some online medium. Long story short, we were able to conduct this on Zoom, and out of our 26 teachers, around 21 were able to attend. And this is even with the fact that a lot of teachers had to go to the village and kind of had limited access. And we were able to do it over a week. And what was funny is the feedback we got is people felt much more this was much more personalized, because everybody was able to, for example, you'd go around, say a word that comes to your mind when you think of something in class, and then everybody would be able to participate. So a lot of the feedback we got is this field felt more individual contact, which was quite interesting. So maybe we would like to take some of these aspects and mix them into the regular training. After the retreat, then we had to figure out how do we leverage the teachers' skills going forward to do digital learning. And one thing we realized, as I was telling you earlier, was that every teacher was at a different place in their technology skills and savviness. So we kind of did the old way of collaboration, right? So we formed teams. Somebody would be good at technology, but somebody's good at lesson planning. So Even at the youth center, for example, we divided the kind of, each teacher had to do 5-ish lessons, and each teacher kind of makes the framework, and then but at the end we have like 60 lessons that every teacher gets access to and teaches using them. So kind of like balancing out the skill levels. And again, it's summer vacation for us, so school is shut. But what we're looking at and doing when the teachers are supposed to start working again next month, is using that time to, till the students arrive, conduct both, continue our online engagement with the focus of not letting the learning slide. But the second thing we are going to do is also planning excellent lessons for the time the kids do come back. So we are like super prep, amazing lessons. The students come in. We are also estimating around August, and we have the whole thing figured out. But that's the hope. So yeah.
Thank you for that. I also just want to take this moment to highlight that we do have a Q&A box, and we started getting some questions. So I'll be going back and forth between the Q&A box and my own questions. But I just want to take the moment to ask you all the first question that was submitted by Ashley, and that is, how have you both engaged parents given the shift in the learning that's happening?
So we have used some Zoom calls. In fact, the very first Monday following spring break was to have been the parent-teacher conference, where all the teachers come up the mountain to the campus, and we get to actually see the parents. And so we switched over to virtual PT parent-teacher conferences, PTCs, and those virtual conferences had far higher attendance than we've ever had. And they were much more effective. And so we realized, wow, this is actually something here, that actually this couldn't be all bad. That sometimes the reliance upon technology can actually bring people closer together. It still lacks a certain kind of special connection there. It will never fully replace it, I don't think. But it still works. I think that one thing that this pandemic has done successfully is it has increased people's attendance in meetings, and our board meetings are typically, people come from all over the world, to Woodstock's campus for that, and not everybody can make it, but everyone was able to make it to the latest board meeting online, and I think that these things are continuing. We've had a few questions and answers. The dorm parents, because the dorm parents don't have students, so they have had time to actually telephone the parents and to check in on them. And sometimes it's a quick check-in, where it's just a 2-minute call. How is everything? To reach out and say, how are you doing? Are you okay? Like that. And sometimes it's just 2 minutes, and other times it's been over 2 hours, where they just want to talk through some things. And so it's being there for our community and reaching out in those one-on-one ways. That's where the relationships can be the strongest. As we move forward, we will be doing more webinars and relying on teachers and alumni and parents to share what they have learned through this process, and to share kind of parenting strategies, and to also have like moments of levity, and not focusing on the difficult things, but possibly think about art or music, or the latest movie that's out. And it's those kinds of things I think are important. This can feel so heavy. It does feel so heavy at times. So today, or rather, I think it's going to be tomorrow, we are going to have a virtual family fun day, where all of the parents and their kids are expected to take video of themselves doing a set of relay races, competitions, egg walk, crab walk relays, where the parents and the students are in a competition, and then we're going to be taking photos and video of that and sort of sharing it with each other and making a compilation, right? So it's those kinds of things, those virtual family fun days, that I look forward to doing more of as we go forward. Because people need to still have fun with each other and to have fun together in this lockdown. So finding ways to do that, I think, will be very important.
I love that, the idea of having fun as best as you can during this time. And then also for those who do have the resources, you kind of run out of excuses for why you can't make meetings. And so your attendance goes up, and that's another bright side.
Exactly. And there's no reason not to just have a virtual dance party with everybody too. Like you can just do it and connect with each other in that way, for sure.
I love that, virtual dance parties. We need to start doing more of those. But Suman, I would love to know how you've been engaging with parents during this time.
Yeah, so all our WhatsApp groups are basically with parents. So for all our lessons, communications, parents are the first kind of gateway. Initially, we started off the whole COVID situation with the first few days and week with safety and awareness campaigns, kind of sending messages, simple stuff in local languages and multiple languages, and trying to make sure that they understand what the safety security protocols are, everything from hand washing and stuff. As the situation progressed, obviously we were cognizant of the fact that parents are the ones that are taking the stress. So for example, issues of money and food and supply and stuff. So then it kind of became more about checking in with the parents about the emotional and family well-being, and not so much about education. Whereas the education bit was sent and directly taken up, something that the kids were doing parallelly, if that makes sense. We often have parents reaching out to us, telling okay, they have food issues, or they have, they need to go to the villages, and kind of our team, our teachers and our our managers and school leader kind of counsel them, and kind of recently, yesterday we had a case with a parent who wanted to go back home. Initially our teacher was like, no, don't go back home, your teacher needs to come back to class. But after discussion with the school leader, we realized that we don't know till when this is going to go on, and even we were thinking about digital learning for a few months, so maybe it's for the best. So these are the kind of rather difficult ways that we have to engage with the parents during these times.
Thank you for that. The next question that we have in the Q&A box is, how do we prevent teacher burnout?
Yeah, I have felt it myself, and all teachers have. And it's, I think that we have to be kind to ourselves. Woodstock actually has a set of guiding principles that we base all decisions upon. And these principles are: we value compassion, we pursue wholeness, we seek well-being, and we tread lightly on the earth, and we elicit the greatness that lies within each member of the community. And important in that has been, we value compassion and we pursue wholeness. And we need to check in with each other and give permission to just do less than what we otherwise are used to doing. And to take that time. I think that teacher burnout can happen if you're looking at a screen for too long without break. It can happen when our routines fall apart. It can happen when we are extroverts and when we need that relationship, and we miss our students, and we don't get energy. Even when we do connect with them over Zoom, it's not the same. I still don't walk away from a call that's on Zoom, and I still don't feel like, oh, that was great. I was able to connect with my kids. I don't feel that way. And so I think that we have to recognize that fact and realize that right now there's just a lot of suffering going on, and there's a lot of quiet and internal suffering, and we might not see it. And everyone's struggle is different, and we can't judge each other's struggles either. And what we all are facing at this time is, it's I hope a once in a lifetime kind of experience, this kind of social isolation and this kind of feeling of being unmoored and adrift and not knowing when we're going to be able to come back to shore. It's that kind of uncertainty it's there's a military term for it called VUCA, right? VUCA is it's when there's high volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, right? So we have serious VUCA right now, and we've been talking about that. And all of those things cause stress, and they cause conflict. And so there is conflict within homes, between parents and students, their children, within parents. There's problems, like what Suman was saying, increased economic anxiety, and all of this is happening. And we have to be compassionate with each other, while also showing a way forward, and also providing enough accountability that the routine stays in place. And I think that is what we have to do in order to address that kind of mental health concern, which the WHO has flagged as a great problem. It's also the kind of solidarity, right? Like when Modi asks everyone to clap at the same time for the first responders, and you hear that sound resonating across the country, it feels good. And it does feel like we're all in this together. And that's, I think, something that we also have to keep coming back to. And just give ourselves pep talks every day. Yeah.
Thanks, Ethan. Suman, I'd also like to get your just a brief message on how your thoughts on avoiding teacher burnout.
So I echo everything Ethan has said. I just wanted to highlight some practical stuff that we did as well to kind of take care of that. I think I recommend you redo your objectives. These are desperate times. We cannot achieve what the program, whatever your program was originally designed to achieve. We had to take a relook at what learning objectives we want to achieve during this time. We had to relook at our frameworks that we use to assess. We kind of created a small monitoring and evaluation system that's applicable for this kind of, we are calling it the pseudo program. But we kind of had to just realize that this is not normal, and we have to also change what's normal for us. That could look like, obviously students are not going to have 7 hours or 5 hours of instruction in a day. But what is non-negotiable skill or competency that we must make sure that this child still achieves, and can we only reduce it to that? Because again, as Ethan was saying, the teachers are going through a lot of troubles themselves as well. Like, for example, our teachers also live in the similar slum, so they don't have a personal space. So we identified that a teacher is only able to give undivided 1 hour to create or deliver a lesson. So we had to work backwards and then see, okay, in 1 hour, how can we do it? So what we did for 2 weeks, the teachers only planned. So if they're doing 1 hour work every day for 2 weeks, it just did the planning. And the week that came after that, they started doing the lessons. So we just had to work with what we had and take a practical approach.
Thank you for that. The next question is for Ethan, and it's from Avi, and she's saying that I'm from India and attended an international boarding school similar to Woodstock, and noticed that many international schools are based away from the metropolitan areas. I'm curious about the sort of collaboration Woodstock has with the rest of Missouri. Do Woodstock students engage with their counterparts from government and private schools as part of the CAS program in IB? I just want you to start off with that part. There's a few more questions there, but Ethan, I'd like your thoughts on that question.
Yeah, so the IB likes to use a lot of acronyms, and CAS stands for Creativity, Action, and Service. And the students are really doing some really great stuff right now in those areas, whether they're making collaborative videos, informative videos. There's some podcasts that have gone out, and there's some brief things. We're also a part of a consortium of schools that are international, that's called GALE, Global Alliance for Innovative Learning, and there have been some discussion about if everybody's online, is it possible to cross-enroll in courses? So that's another interesting possibility that I think we do need to explore among the schools, the South Asia International Baccalaureate Schools Association. We do need to explore possible collaborative efforts, because we all are working toward the same objective, and we all need to be rowing in the same direction. So yeah, we have reached out to a few other international schools, but my goodness, it feels like when we are in crisis mode and when we're really working our hardest to catch up, it's difficult to reach out to other schools, and that's the time when we need it the most, and it has been difficult. I know that our community engagement office has been working very hard to ensure that there is food security in the local area, and so there has been needs analyses done and fundraising that has gone out to our alumni community, and that's been done in collaboration with some of the other schools in the area that we have. That's a very local kind of thing that we have been doing at Woodstock. We do like to encourage students to find very specific things that they can do each day, and a single act of kindness. We are inspired by the Gandhi quote that says, "In gentle ways we can shake the world," and I think that it's a great question, and we need to find ways to gently shake the world together across the different schools. And I think that we aren't doing enough in that area of collaboration between international schools within India. We can definitely do more.
We have a lot of questions left, but unfortunately, due to time, we only have around 6 minutes left to the rest of our panel discussion. So what I would like to do with the last few minutes that we do have together is just get a few parting words from both of our panelists here today. Just some last messages that you may have for everyone that's here listening in terms of, what your future looks like and what you're hopeful for the future, even with all the challenges that you're facing today. Suman, we can start with you.
In terms of, okay, so I think these are times that I think none of us can really predict what's going to happen in the future. Having said that, we can definitely be hopeful, and we can work with what information we have at the given instant. We as an organization are looking at continuing supporting students with their education needs in any shape and form. So with our youth program the center has been officially closed to September, but we are committed to continue the digital program. A benefit of this is obviously wherever the youth is, like it could be there in the village or wherever they've gone or been displaced because of the situation, they will still be able to access our programs. At the school, in the future, again, I was saying earlier, we are preparing for excellent lessons for when the schools open. And in the meantime, focusing on doing remediation and working with students individually, digitally, to make sure that they don't have any learning losses when they come in next year. So this is kind of organization-wise. I also wanted to say, I wanted to echo as my final words what Maryam was saying earlier. India is super diverse, super large, too many different types of schools and challenges and issues. And I believe in the power of stories, individual stories. There's a lot of pain out there right now, a lot of challenges out there, but there's a lot of innovation and a lot of hope out there as well. And I feel as community of educators, we have to be mindful of what we are paying our attention towards. Not saying we don't pay attention to pain, but sometimes the only way to move forward from pain is being hopeful and finding a solution. So I think that's where we should divert our energy. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Suman. I share your optimism that there will be some innovation, some possibilities here that actually will shift our approach to education. An approach where less is more, an approach where we value relationships, and an approach where we can increasingly take on the student's perspective, increased empathy for not just students but also their families, and to take on their perspective for the difficulties and also the opportunities that they have. I also hope that we're able to change our methods of assessment during this time so that they become more authentic, more engaging, and more practical, and less rote and reliant upon kind of things that are easily Googleable, right? So once we get away from those kinds of assessments, that's where exciting learning can occur, and that's where students can start doing genuine research and genuine service and genuine creativity, and finding quiet ways to make the world a better place. And if we can come out of this lockdown in that way, then so much the better. We are right now at this point coming up with all the protocols and the safety procedures and the guidelines for reopening, and that will be the next kind of shift that we are really looking toward. Is, what is the bar? First, the government has to allow it, and then we have to ensure that we can do it in a way that is safe and responsible. And that's the next step. And I think in that step, schools will have to work very closely with one another to share best practices. That's already being done by the Boarding Schools Association, BSA, and we're taking a lot of our guidance from them. But schools that are day schools, I think they can look to other examples, some of the schools that are opening first, like in Denmark and places like that. We needn't invent this from scratch. We need to learn from each other, and we also need to listen to the epidemiologists and listen to the health experts, and make decisions based on their guidance. And so for that, we're very thankful for the entire international community and also the leadership of the government of India in this, in coming up with different levels and different guidance, because we need guidance at this time as a school when making these kinds of decisions. We do hope that we are able to bring everybody back from all over the world, but I recognize that it will probably be in a phased approach that our school is able to reopen. And that's probably as it should be, because we'll probably have to quarantine students at the very beginning, and then work from there. But as far as day schools go, it's going to be even more challenging. And I really hope that that we are able to come to kind of a common understanding of this is the best way forward, this is the best way to do it, in a way that limits learning loss and also mitigates risk. So that's where we're headed next.
Thank you so much. I apologize for the questions we couldn't get to. Just because of time, we weren't able to get to everything, but within this 1 hour, I feel like we've covered so much. I know that I've learned a lot from understanding how we've been adapting and what these new changes can mean for the future of education, because we're already starting to see some silver linings and all the changes that are occurring. So it doesn't necessarily all have to be a negative or a loss. And there are some positives throughout all of this. I would like to thank Suman and Ethan once again for making the time to join us today. This has been an incredible discussion, and I know that it's going to be valuable for everyone who's joined us as well. So thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Maryam. You're amazing. Suman, so inspired. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm inspired as well. Thank you.